Hello, I'm Jeff Power, senior writer for Real Time Fantasy Sports. Welcome to another edition of the Real Time Fantasy Sports Show. On today's show, I'm thrilled to be joined by Joe Bond. He is the founder of Fantasy Six Pack. He recently did a best ball championship draft for baseball on our website. We're going to break it down, look at his team, talk about the entire draft, get his strategies for these best ball leagues, which are so popular on our site. This best ball championship is phenomenal as well. I highly encourage you to join. Go to rtsports.com, click on the Money League link at the top of the page. You can get in this best ball championship we're going to talk about. You can get in all sorts of leagues as well. We have different price points, different formats. The best ball championship actually is a points format, but we do roto as well, all different formats, all different price points. You can get in a league today. Go to rtsports.com and click on that Money League link, and you can see all the leagues we have to offer on our site. So I'm happy to be joined by Joe Bond now. I'm going to bring him up. Joe, thanks so much for joining me on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me on, man. Looking forward to it.
So, Joe, tell me a little bit about Fantasy Six Pack. What do you guys do exactly? How can people see what you guys have to offer? Let everybody know out there.
Yeah, so Fantasy Six Pack's been around for a few years. We do a whole bunch of sports. Obviously, the football and the baseball are the two big ones, but we dabble in some basketball, some hockey. We do fantasy golf. We're even getting into F1 racing. We do DFS. We do some betting content, stuff like that. So it's all free. Just go ahead and check it out. A bunch of us are on Twitter. I'm at F6P_Joe. There's at Fantasy Six Pack, which is the main site. We've got about 50 total writers over there, across all the different sports that we do. And, it's just a big one-stop shop for a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, I highly encourage people to check them out. They do a great job over there. Like Joe said, a lot of different writers, all different games they're covering as well. So good stuff, Joe. Thanks for joining me again. I really appreciate it. So you just did a draft on our site, Best Ball Championship. I'm going to pull up the draft board so everybody can see it. This is the big board here where everybody can see how the picks played out. So, Joe, let's talk about your team. First of all, the first round. Were you a little surprised to see Juan Soto sitting there at 4? I mean, Garrett Cole usually is the number 1 overall pick because it's a points format. So, was Soto a surprise? Was there anybody else you were thinking about targeting at that point?
No, Solo to me is the number 1 pick. I mean, the format of these leagues is essentially OPS. And I know it's points, but you get 2 points for a double, 3 points for a triple, 4 for a home run. Single is 1. So it essentially is an OPS league. Juan Soto crushes in OPS leagues, so he to me is the number 1 pick. I know pitching goes really heavy. I've done 2 of these drafts, and pitching just goes bonkers in the beginning. I am more of I still want to get those like stud hitters who I can rely on every single day, and I'll sprinkle in a bunch of good pitchers here and there. But I feel like I'll take my chances and take some guys later and hope I just hit on a few of them. I just need one really good start out of most pitchers any given week for them to be in my starting lineup.
Yeah, you definitely touched on it. Pitchers can go crazy early in this draft, which is not normally the case in many of your drafts you do, and especially a roto format. The last owner actually took the guy who had the 10th pick. He took 4 straight pitchers to start the draft. And then he took 2 more after he took Pete Alonso. We had 6.
It's not the first time I've seen that happen. The very first draft I did, I had the 2nd pick. The first guy took his first 7 pitchers and his first 9 picks. And the guy picking 3rd took 7 straight pitchers.
Wow.
I mean, look, I've played in best ball and other sites as well, and I've never seen it quite this pitcher heavy. I thought maybe the first draft was an anomaly. Apparently not. So I will have to adjust slightly. I'm going to do a couple more. So I probably will start bumping up the pitchers because, I mean, I like my pitching staff, but I start really losing out on some of the guys that I would have liked to have had and thought I could have had in like 6th, 7th round, but they just all get snatched up.
Yeah, and I'm kind of the same way, especially in a best ball format. I like that middle round pitcher area, I think there's a lot of guys that they
Hmm.
may have bad weeks. Don't get me wrong; they may disappear some weeks, like a Sean Manaea or Shane Baz. I know he's hurt right now, but still, I mean, they may have their rough patches. But in a best ball format, you just need them to hit. You
Right.
know, not every week, but a lot of weeks. And if they just do that, you can still produce well.
Yeah.
Waiting on that pitcher spot. That seems to be what you were thinking with this.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, look, in round 8, 10, 14, 15, I mean, you got Chris Bassett, Eduardo Rodriguez, who, I mean, yeah, he might not win a ton of games in Detroit, but, he'll rack up the Ks and give me some points in the innings. Sonny Gray in a good spot in Minnesota. John Means is, to me, super underrated. Strikeouts really aren't there, but he's a really good pitcher. He's not gonna hurt me. And then I was able to take some late chances on guys like Kyle Hendricks, who's just kind of safe. I'm expecting a little bit of a bounce back from him this year. Carlos Carrasco's a big risk, but I mean, more often than not, I'm probably going to do a strategy like this in these best ball. I am interested in maybe doing one where I go a little more pitcher heavy, but I still think you want those reliable bats week in and week out that are just going to always be there for you. I'd much rather have Rodriguez and Gray and Means as my pitchers than some of these teams who waited on their bats, and they're going to rely on guys like, I mean, look, they're fine, but Tommy Edman and Jazz Chisholm, like, they're not OPS guys, so they're not going to be like heavy point getters for those guys.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What's your strategy when it comes to a points format like this compared to the Roto format, where you need to really concentrate on all those categories? Any players you like more, like less, when it comes to the two different formats?
Yeah, I mean, typically in a points format, I'm looking at guys who I want power bats. You strike out here and there, fine. I'm not gonna go after like a Joey Gallo type because he just strikes out far too much. But I want guys who have good plate control, and can smash the ball. So you see early on, right? I went after Soto and Freeman and Judge, and I think Bryant's going to be really good in Colorado. Obviously, Springer, if he stays healthy, is really good. I even went after like a Javier Baez, who he strikes out a good bit, but I mean when he hits the ball, he hits the ball. So like it's gonna go. Fremel Reyes, who actually has outfield eligibility here, he is a steal. I don't really understand why he keeps slipping as far as he is. So that's typically where I go for hitters, which is why I went Soto first. Which I'm shocked he didn't go number one overall, if considering the first guy actually did take a hitter.
Yeah. So I got to ask you about Josh Hader. Round 5, he goes, and other formats, he goes a lot earlier. Some people might be scared of him in a points format, but if you look at it, he still is top 20 overall in
100%.
points for pitchers last year. So, Josh Hader, did you think that was a good value pick for you at that point? Were you happy? Was that one of your targets because people kind of ignored the relief pitcher because you don't have to start one? Give me your thoughts on Hader.
Yeah, actually, I did think that was a bit of a value there. I was looking at maybe I was definitely going to take a pitcher there. And I kind of debated between like a Musgrove, but Hader on my board, I do some projections and some Z scores and things like that. Like his Z score over all the rest of the pitchers available was far higher. So of the guys that were left. And I know in points formats, people, especially best ball, people tend to lean starting pitching, and I get that concept, but your really good relievers are going to be just as good as some of the. Hader, in my opinion, could easily finish. Let me see here. He could easily finish, in my opinion, like top 20 pitcher. Just because you look at the points, right? He's getting 7 points for every save. That's the same amount for a win on this site. And yeah, he's not going to get the innings. He's not going to get the quality start. Strikeouts, he doesn't rack up the total points, but I mean, he's going to come in, do his one game thing, 1 inning thing, right? Maybe 2. So he's going to get the 3 points for the inning, the 7 points for the save, maybe a strikeout or 2. You're looking at like a 10, 10 and a half, 11 to 12 point. Well, no, I guess the most he could get would be 11 and a half. So you're looking at 11 and a half as like a perfect outing for him. So you're I would say you're at least looking at like a 10-point outing more often than not. Some of these pitchers down the line, you might be lucky to get that out of them in every single start that they go, because they're going to get more walks, they're going to allow more hits, earned runs. If he just goes out there and does his thing like he usually does, he's super valuable. And you get me 2 or 3 of those a week, that's 30 points.
All right, I want to talk about two positions. I feel they're kind of top heavy this year, and I want to know how you're approaching them. We can see in the draft where you picked catcher and third base. So you took Chris Bryant, kind of talked about him already in round 6. That was your third baseman. You took Varsho in round 12 at catcher. So tell me a little bit how you're approaching catcher and third base this year.
So third base, I typically want to try to grab one of those top guys. Like if I can't get Jose Ramirez early on, you know, I want to be able to get one of those top 5-6 guys for the most part. There's just, I feel like some of the guys in the middle, you know, Chapman's had his years, but he strikes out a lot. Rendon's got super injury issues. We know that. It really drops off there. Even Bregman to me is kind of a scary thought as like my only starting third baseman. So I really, and now that Bryant got to Colorado, you know, he moves right up there. So the first there was probably 6 with Ramirez, Devers, Machado, Arenado, that's 5. Riley. Bryant makes it a good safe 6 in my opinion. After that, I mean, you're picking and choosing. I mean, Josh Turner could be interesting, but I typically want to go after one of those top guys just because I feel like the talent level really drops off and the reliability, especially in a best ball. Maybe in like a redraft where I can go out and pick up a player, you know, during the season and just play the hot hand or whatever. I might be okay waiting and passing on some of those guys if the draft just doesn't fall to me that way. But I probably will push my hand a little bit, force it a little bit more in a best ball.
So how about catcher? I'm still, to be honest with you, I don't know the strategy I want to do at this point with catcher because I think there's pros and cons with waiting and getting one early. Some of the top guys I don't totally trust. I've played with it, both scenarios. And I'm not sure which one works the best. What about you? What are you doing at the catcher spot this year?
So with this one, I'm not gonna absolutely go crazy with catcher. I highly doubt I'm getting Sal Perez because he's just going extremely too early, in my opinion. I like him, but it's just not worth it, especially in best ball points leagues, right? You don't need, especially in here, because you're only starting 1. Now, NFBC makes you start 2, so that's a bit different of a story. I kind of want that top guy. I'm a little bit more okay waiting in a 1-catcher league and just going for the best possible player. Varsho fell to me, and I think with his, you know, he's going to probably be playing a lot more outfield than catcher. I think there's something to that. In round 12, that seemed like a great value, and you know, he's in my opinion a little bit safer than, you know, you go a little bit farther down, the Tyler Stevensons, the Keeper Ruizes, the Mitch Garvers. Like, I like them in a normal standard 1-catcher redraft league with free agency, but in best ball, I don't think I'm gonna go much farther than like a Wilson Contreras, who actually I got in my first draft. But you do have to draft a second catcher, and I took my chances with Alejandro Kirk later on too. So,
all right. So I wanted to get your thoughts on your picks. Was there anyone, you know, a couple maybe that stood out that you were really happy to get, you were surprised by? I know you kind of mentioned a few already, but anything that you're really happy about with how players fell to you in this draft?
You know, I'll kind of start with the negative here. I'm actually kind of disappointed in myself that I took Freddie Freeman. I love Freddie Freeman, but what I've found out after doing 2 drafts on RT Sports here is first baseman drop. I mean, I could have gotten Paul Goldschmidt in round 7, Pete Alonso. Like they fell like a rock, and yeah, he's a great player, and he was on the like near the top of my board when he came up, so I took him. But I think I probably should have gone with like Devers, or somebody like that, and this gotten my third base out of the way earlier. And I was lucky enough to get Bryant later, but taking Freeman, I feel like isn't worth it at that point, considering how far and how far some of the first basemen fall that are good. And look, you can get really quality first basemen much, much, much later. Jared Walsh around 12. Josh Bell is solid. Joey Votto is fine. Reese Hoskins, is good. I mean, there's a lot of really quality first basemen that you can get much later who aren't that far off of a Freeman in a points league. I mean, considering you'll be filling other positions where you would have drafted Freeman. So the difference that you're playing there just isn't that great. Trying to think of I mean, there's only like a 100 point difference between like him and Bell over the course of the entire season in my projections, and you could have gotten Bell 10 rounds later. So and I would have been able to fill some other positions that probably would have made my team a little bit stronger. But I'm fine with that pick overall, but I think that's probably the one that I regret the most after I was like analyzing this at the end. Some of the picks that I really like, I like the Chris Bryant pick that I mentioned. One of my favorites is obviously Reyes. I was like eyeing him up a couple of rounds before that, but needed pitching, and when he fell back to me, I was super happy. I don't know if people just think he's only got utility eligibility, and he's gray on here, so like it kind of shows that he does, but he definitely has outfield eligibility. I double checked that before I took him. I think some of these later outfielders that I got are pretty solid here to fill out my backups. Now, the other point for listeners and watchers here, you only have to start 3 outfielders, so you don't need a ton. But to get Ozuna and Renfroe, very power bat friendly outfielders for this format, that was fantastic. And then I kind of went super upside here at the very end. It was pretty late at night. I did the 11 p.m. Eastern time draft for me, and so these last few picks, I just took upside Josiah Gray, Kirk, Matt Brash. I wanted the what's his name from Houston. Oh no, I got him too. Yeah, I did get him. Pena. Yeah, so I went super upside here. I took the new shortstop for Houston, took Josiah Gray, Kirk, who I think is play a bunch of DH for catcher, which, if Varsho gets hurt or something like that, that's going to be fantastic. And he might outperform him certain weeks too because of that. And then Matt Brash, who I think is going to get that 5th spot in Seattle and has been pitching really, really great this spring. So went a little risky there at the end, but I think it could really pay off.
I think you're kind of like me, though, when I look at your roster and how you filled it out, where you went, hitting first. That's kind of still how I approach things. I know that's a old school strategy, but still the way I do things. And went pitcher in the middle, and you took some chances at the end, but I don't see a lot of rookies on your roster. And for me, I just think there's so much uncertainty in baseball when it comes to rookies. I feel like owners love rookies too. When they fall in love with them, they take them really early. I mean, what do you think about rookies in the rookie class this year? Is there anybody you really like? Is there anybody you want to take a chance on?
Honestly, not really. I took a couple at the end here. I'll take that chance. I mean, like what? I took Josiah Gray over guys like Johnny Cueto. Okay. Like, who cares at that point? Obviously you want the best overall team, but go get your guys. If Josiah Gray has shown some upside, he's got potential, and so I think he's there. And like I said, Brash is another one who I've just heard really, really great things out of spring from him, and there's a lot of talk, a lot of smoke that he's going to get that 5th spot there in Seattle. Kirk wasn't somebody that I was really interested in, until just recently because of they're probably going to put him at DH a bunch because he's got a really good bat. But when he was splitting time with Jansen, it wasn't as appealing. But to get him late, again, not really all over the rookies, but I took him with like my last picks. So whatever. The other thing I would say, like strategy wise with this format, is position eligibility. You want guys who are going to be able to move around your lineup each week. And I have a ton of them. Like Brandon Lau is second base and outfield. So when you look at the board and you're just looking at the green, it only looks like I have 5 outfielders. I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because Varsho's got outfield. I've got 7 outfielders because Bryant and Lau also have outfield, and so does Varsho. And then at the same time, Baez is second base and shortstop. Bryant also has first base. I've got who else? I feel like I had somebody else that had multiple position eligibility, but regardless, like that is important so that it gives you flexibility. Injuries are going to happen, down weeks are going to happen. If you want people to be able to slide all around your roster, and that almost makes picking some of the batters who are going to have these multiple position eligibilities, like a Chris Taylor, right? People love him because he's got everything. Taking some of those guys a little bit earlier and in front of some of these pitchers that's all they are. They're pitchers, and that's important, and you need them, but you want that flexibility in your hitting more so, in my opinion.
Yeah, ironically, I was going to ask you that question about targets of getting players with multiple positions. Obviously, you did that, and so everybody knows out there there's no roster management in these best ball leagues. You're stuck with your roster here, can't move guys around. So injuries happen. This is baseball, especially shorter spring training. Who knows what's going to happen with that? We saw last year what happened with the COVID stuff. So it's craziness. So obviously, definitely a target of yours getting multiple.
Yeah, I mean, look, perfect example. In my very first draft, I needed a third base backup, and I was looking at a couple different guys, and it was between VR, who has shortstop and second, along with third. Or no, he's just third and short. But Luis Arias, I'm probably butchering that name, he's got second, third, and outfield, and I was kind of short on outfield backups as well, and I was short on second base backups as well. So I liked VR's potential maybe a little bit more than Arias, but I needed that flexibility, so he kind of got the bump from me.
All right, Joe, I really appreciate you joining me today. Really appreciate it. It was great breaking this draft down with you. I think you did a great job in your draft. Like I said, I think you kind of follow a similar strategy to what I do. Not sure if that's 100% right, but how I play things out, and that's kind of how I liked how you did things. So I appreciate it. Again, it's Joe Bond. He's with Fantasy Six Pack. You're gonna do a couple more of these drafts before.
Yeah, I'll be shooting them out on whenever I sign up for one. I'll be shooting them out on my Twitter again at F6P_Joe. So go ahead and sign up and join me and see if you can knock me down.
Yeah, and again, check out a site. It's Fantasy Six Pack. All sorts of different content over there. Different sports. You can check them out. Joe, again, thanks a lot for joining me. Really appreciate it.
All right, great. Thanks for having me on.
All right, that was Joe Bond with Fantasy Six Pack. I want to thank Joe again for joining me on the show today. Really appreciate it. He did a great job breaking down that best ball championship draft. If you want to get in one, go to rtsports.com, click on the Money League link. You can see all the different offers we have up there for baseball. It's getting ready to start here. A couple weeks. We're starting opening day, so get in a league now before it's too late. We have leagues going off around the clock. All right, this has been Jeff Power for Real Time Fantasy Sports. Have a great day.